So I am going to turn it over to our President and CEO, Paula Gold-Williams. She's going to give everybody a welcome and an overview. We also have Dr. Chris Euchster, who's our Chief Operating Officer with us, and Rudy Garza, who's our Interim Chief Customer Engagement Officer, and you'll be hearing from them today too. So Paula, I will turn it over to you.
All right. Good Friday morning to everyone. Thank you for joining us. We thought it would be good to give you some additional context of what we're going to talk about on Monday. And so we very much appreciate you taking the time to get a little bit additional information from us. So what I want to say before you get to the heart of the materials that Chris and Rudy will cover is a bit of what we're doing here and how significant it is. To understand where we are today and where we want to go in the future, though, I need to give a little context about where we started. We've been at this goal of decarbonizing our fleet, updating our generation, adopting new technology for decades. We are invested in wind. We've been in wind contracts that span across Texas for 20 years. In the 2011 timeframe, we moved from having just 1,000 megawatts of wind to wanting to meaningfully invest in solar. And so we put out this global RFP at the time, 400 megawatts, which for San Antonio to do, for a municipal utility to do at the time was unheard of. And we put it out globally. Before we had all of these digital abilities, we were able to attract companies. And my predecessor, Dole Beneby, did a lot of work in terms of creating interest with potential solar suppliers. That was a great effort. We got a lot of national attention and global attention, and we ended up partnering with a company for the solar capacity based out of South Korea. So that was successful, and we got 400 megawatts from that. We had already added some small installations across to complement that, and so we have more than 550, close to 600 megawatts of solar today. Simultaneously, we created our energy efficiency and conservation plan. We label it as STEP because it's Save for Tomorrow Energy Plan. And being able to save money through conservation, being able to support technologies where we're putting on and supporting with rebates to put solar installations in homes, weatherize homes, do all different types of projects and products that can fit anyone. When we did that, that was like deferring the investment of an 800 megawatt plant. We conserved that much energy that we didn't have to build it. We would have built it in the 2010, 2012 timeframe, but we didn't need to. And so we put all of this together. We've been on a path for a very long time to try to actually implement real technology on the energy side to make a difference. Our STEP plan is award-winning. We are number one in Texas in solar and number 5 in the nation. Our wind capacity is huge in comparison to many other utilities. So it's been very, very meaningful. We also in 2017 developed this concept that we got to do something different. And we ultimately came out with this flexible path strategy. And as much and as simple as it might seem, it's innovative. No one else was thinking about this at the time. People were talking about whether or not energy storage would take off, what would be the new technology. What we said is we are open to all technology, and the point is we need to be flexible. And that strategy helps us invite in more companies to partner with us. We're tech enabled. Our primary responsibility is to provide power. We service, we go to church, and our kids go to the same schools as our customers. So what we want to do is make sure that we're paying attention, and we're always committed to this community that we've served for 160 years. But if we can partner and bring in other companies that can give us technology that we can use, that's the best thing we can do for the company. Think globally, act locally. So from the journey that we went on, we launched that flexible path strategy, and it has helped us think about, again, we don't have to solve every problem, but we do need to think about solving things new and differently in the future and just be open. Our scope is we look at projects from all over, and it has helped us, again, continue to be very, very efficient over time, very, very effective, very innovative, being able to lead and shape actual real steps forward in trying to, again, improve the air quality and the water quality, in our community. So in 2019, what happened, we had talked to the community for about a year about this flexible path strategy. We started again thinking about what's going to happen here. The city created the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan, and then our board endorsed that plan through our belief and our commitment to our flexible strategy. And underneath all of that, as we were trying to figure it out, we said, well, that's important. But as we're trying to implementation, what are the main things that we need to do to make sure that whatever we do, we're thoughtful, we're passionate, we're objective, we're thinking about all of our options, but we're making sure that we do it right. So we created these 6 pillars. The pillars, we bounced those off of our community. We said, we want your input. What do you think about these pillars? And it helped us tighten them and shape them correctly. And we've asked them, what's the most important? I will tell you over and over again, there's 2 that are primary. One of them is customer affordability. Customers feel like everything we do has to be about affordability. We haven't implemented a rate increase in 6 years because we understand that we have to constantly tighten our belt, and we should never ask the community for anything that we don't have to. And so they expect it, and we can do it, and we've done it. Will we ever need a rate case? Of course we'll need one, but we will do everything we can because customer affordability is the most important thing. Next is reliability. Customers expect, and even more so during COVID, a blink. They notice a blink. People are they're either working on their jobs, looking for jobs, particularly now because of COVID, taking care of their families. The consistent and reliable delivery of power is extremely important to them. So we do that. And then there are other pillars: resiliency, how fast we can respond; security, we have to keep the grid safe; safety, we have to keep employees and the public safe; and emerging and getting more and more focus is environmental responsibility. So we have, again, the flexible path strategy. We have all these initiatives around renewables. We have microgrids. We're exploring into storage. We have the energy efficiency and conservation program. And then we have all these pillars. But for us, that's the foundation. And the key is, again, we've been servicing this community for 160 years, and we do generate power. We have power plants, and we have agreements for delivery and supply of power. We transmit, we're in the transmission business. We distribute that energy, and then we serve customers. Our employees take calls, make calls, reach out and provide assistance. We ask customers, how can we help you? And that's our responsibility, particularly as a municipal entity. So from that perspective, we are always trying to figure out, how do we actually make things really happen? How do we make sure that we can stand behind the power that we produce? And so just like we thought, hey, the RFP for just 400 megawatts, I say just, again, it was big, was important. We wanted to make this next step. We know that there are a lot of plants in our portfolio that are getting older, and we have to be thoughtful in the transition to retire those plants. We also know that we have coal units that ultimately need to close. Now, we have to be careful again about how we do that for customer affordability. We have to be careful that we protect reliability and that we're operating efficiently. So what are we doing? We said, well, we gotta start thinking about those replacements. And we said, from our flexible path strategy, we are going to create this FlexPOWER bundle. And the concept of the bundle is important because while renewable energy is important and we want to add more solar, while that's extremely important, it's not enough, because when the sun doesn't shine and the wind doesn't blow, when it's at night, when there's storms, you're not going to get the power from the renewable energy perspective. So we said, we got to have it, but we got to have it complemented with other things, but we have to have it in a big way. So instead of 400 megawatts, we have said we want up to 900 megawatts of solar, just solar, again, because we think that's kind of the best renewable to focus on right now. And then we want energy storage. Now, we shaped about 50 megawatts of energy storage. Why? Because those batteries that are currently commonly available don't have a lot of duration. So we need our plants, the baseload plants that are retiring can function 24/7, 365. And then when you have a battery that only functions for an hour, it's not enough. It's helpful, it's fast responding, it's the thing that you need to help renewables, but it's not deep enough. And so in addition to the 900 megawatts of solar, the 50 megawatts of energy storage, we want 500 megawatts of what we call firming capacity. What will help the renewables function the best? And we're open. Now, look, we're in a state where gas is common and it's natural gas and it's inexpensive and it's abundant. But we said, is something out there that is as reliable as gas and can match the performance and is less to non-emitting? We are totally open to that. So we decided we're going to have to put out an RFP. The RFP is the best way to find out what's there. But we also had to take into consideration there is a pandemic going on. Travel's restricted. It's harder to do business. I mean, thank goodness we have this technology. It's harder, but you got to think differently. And so before we initiate the RFP, which will happen in the fall, we created the RFI, Request for Information, and we send it out in 10 languages. We send it out all from companies we know to companies that we don't know. And what we are excited is about, even though there's a pandemic, we got a really strong response. And that response is something that you're going to hear our COO, Dr. Chris Euster, talk about. What did we hear and what did we see? We see people still interested. Most of it was in the United States, but there were also countries from around the globe that gave us suggestions, and we're looking at them now. And we're going to take those suggestions and we're going to shape them. And not only are we going to figure out how can we possibly take real action, non-emitting to not completely or close to it. How can we do that? And also potentially enhance our energy efficiency and conservation program. Chris is going to talk about the generation side, and Rudy, he's the head of our customer engagement officer, Rudy Garza. He's going to talk about this energy efficiency and conservation program and the responses that we got from the RFI process that address that. We're super excited. We're early on. We are very much focused on sharing this information. We're going to post it on the website. We're going to create encounters where we can talk to the public, talk to our customers and see what they think and see what interests they have in it and what thoughts they have. How can we make the best choices for them? Again, recognizing our 6 value pillars and all the things that we're committed to. So it's a great and an interesting process that we're going to get into. We're going to share and look forward to the feedback that we get. And ultimately next year, we hope that we'll be at a process where we'll be able to start making some changes to retire some plants and then replace them with better technology, more efficient, clean technology. So that's the intro, and that's what you're going to hear today.
Thank you, Paula. We're going to go into the presentation now, so I'm going to share my screen and turn it over to Chris Euster and Mr. Rudy Garza. Let me do this really quickly. And then after, of course, you all have opportunities to ask questions, and we'll go over that when we're through the presentation. So let me share here. And Dr. Euster, I will turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Melissa. And can you all hear me okay? Audio is good? Okay, good. Well, again, thank you for taking part in this. I know everyone's always busy, and so appreciate y'all having the conversation with us. I think, like Paula said, we're trying to do something unique here. We're trying to put together a generation package. There's no one single bullet that will solve this issue of kind of getting to zero carbon or carbon neutrality. It's going to take an integrated approach to the FlexPOWER bundle is really a breakthrough approach to try to accomplish that. And I'm going to give you a preview of kind of the things that we're seeing here. The submissions the deadline for the submissions were end of August. So we've had a couple of weeks to look at them. And again, to Paula's point, we did the RFI to raise awareness, to get the best thinking across the globe, and that will help us shape our RFP, which we hope to get out later this year. So And this is a very real project because ultimately we're going to use this capacity to replace existing power plants. So I'm going to take you through most of it. Rudy's going to talk about the flex step portion. I'll hand it off to him when we get to those charts. So if you go to the next page. So again, our objective here is just to preview what we're seeing from the all source flex power bundle RFI. Next page. So agenda, we'll give a brief overview of the RFI, really talk about the global response that we did get. To Paula's point, we sent it out to a lot of places and we did get a very good, strong response. We'll provide some early insights that we're seeing on solar, storage, the firming capacity, distributed generation, the flex step piece, a little bit about what we're seeing on economic development, perspective on the challenges, talk a little bit about the stakeholder engagement consultant that we brought for the RFP that we brought on board, and then our path forward. Go to the next page. So really, it's what we're doing is we're taking a approach up to 900 megawatts of solar, 50 megawatts of battery storage, and an all-source component for that firming capacity. And what we're trying to do here, and Paula talked about the pillars, this is both a quantitative and qualitative process to really figure out what is the best solution for San Antonio. And economics and affordability will be a very, very important part of it, but so will the environment. We want to get to carbon neutrality. A big factor here, kind of how we get there. And one of the reasons we opened it up to all source for the firming capacities, we really wanted to see the best thinking there. Can we get to zero carbon with that firming capacity is going to be a big question that we're going to try to answer. And then there's a social component of this. How do we make sure that we are taking care of our community in the right way? So this is a comprehensive approach to replacing generation in a transformative way here in this next decade. Next page. So like Paula said, we received over 200 responses across the globe. We got responses from North America, a lot from the US, South America, Europe, Japan, Australia. So we got responses from. So we did very much raise the global awareness, and it really has provided us valuable information and insight as we ultimately shape this into an RFP to take out to the market. Next page. This is sort of a category of what came in at a high level. So the majority of it was specific to the Flex Power Bundle. We did see roughly about 20% of the proposals were Flex Step specific. And then we saw some that had a little bit of both, which was nice to see that there was a distributed component that could also help on the Flex Power Bundle. So that was interesting to see. As you can expect, we saw a lot of solar. So 36% of the proposals were solar, 18% battery energy storage, 11% alternative technologies, which we'll talk a little bit more about. 6% were gas-fired generation, 3% wind, and miscellaneous proposals that were kind of general consulting responses. Go to the next page. So let's start with the insights that we saw in the solar. I thought what was interesting is we saw proposals from across the state. So it wasn't just a lot of West Texas solar. We in fact saw a majority of the projects right here in San Antonio where our load is. So that was quite interesting. And so we saw diversity in terms of geographies where these solar projects were coming from. We saw, mostly utility scale solar in planning and development stages. So these were projects that were, not just concepts or ideas, but close to being ready to go. We did see some pairing with batteries, as you might expect. And most of the CODs or commercial operation dates were between 21 and 2023. We saw contract terms 10 to 25 years, project sizes from 5 megawatts all the way up to 900 megawatts, and indicative pricing from about $18 a megawatt hour to $60 a megawatt hour. So no real surprises there. That's kind of where we expected pricing to be. But we did see quite a bit of variability in what these projects were across Texas, and exciting that a lot of them were right here in San Antonio. Next page. On the battery side, again, we also saw some pretty strong competitive, attractive terms. We received over 35 battery storage projects proposals. Majority of them were located at the transmission level, but we did see some distributed ones as well at the distribution level. Duration, to Paula's point, we saw 1 to 4 hours for this technology, mostly lithium ion here. 10 megawatts all the way up to 400 megawatts. And pricing, indicative pricing was roughly about $3 a kW month to $15 a kW month. On the alternative technologies, we're really kind of pushing conventional boundaries of, how do you get longer duration storage? We saw a number of different ideas out there, again, at different stages, and there's additional evaluation that we need to kind of understand about the viability, the commercial viability of a lot of these technologies. But we saw compressed air energy storage systems, and that's basically where you're taking, you're pumping air into an underground cavern using electricity, ideally kind of zero emission electricity, and then you reverse that process when you need that power, when the renewables are not, when the solar is not shining, the wind blowing. Air energy storage systems, this is where you liquefy air, you bring it to very, very low temperatures, again, using, ideally renewable energy, and then you reverse that process when you need that energy back. We saw quite a bit of thermal energy storage, and this is basically capturing exhaust waste heat, from maybe some of our power plants, and basically using that as a storage mechanism in a medium like salt or concrete or rock. We saw some underground pumped hydro storages where you have, for example, an abandoned oil field, and you basically use water to pressurize that, again, using electricity from renewables, and basically you reverse that process when you need that power. And then we saw some kinetic energy storage, and this is basically flywheels. This is storage that is captured in motion, and so we saw some things. This is the flywheel is basically something that goes around, I think, 16,000 RPMs, and again, you charge it up when you have energy available, and you discharge it when you. Interesting, promising longer duration storage ideas out there. And again, I think the key question for us beyond just the economics is the viability of these projects, because ultimately we are trying to replace a plant here. So we need something that is proven and that works. You go to the next page. So on the firming capacity, and a lot of these alternative technologies do fit in that category because they do have longer duration. So we saw some combustion turbine based gas-fired generators. We saw some recip engines that were gas-fired. Now, on the recip engines, you could run those on biofuels, so that there are ways to, again, reduce or address the carbon there. But we did see some conventional resources that were proposed. On the innovative technology, just to go into a little bit more detail on the concrete thermal energy storage, where you're basically taking exhaust heat and you're storing that, and you're heating the size of a house to basically capture that energy, and then again run that in a reverse process to release that energy. Liquid salt, molten salt, again, where you're using thermal energy and you're capturing it into molten salt. We saw some distributed connected battery energy storage systems where you might have batteries in homes and businesses that we might provide a rebate or a subsidy to, and the customer has full access to it. But because of that rebate or subsidy, we can partner and we can have some availability to dispatch that when we need it. Kind of like our demand response program, but bringing batteries into that concept. Geomechanical pump storage, I talked about basically pressurizing an oil field and that has been abandoned and basically reversing that process when you need it. And again, the compressed air energy storage is the one where you're pressurizing air into an underground cavern. We also saw some integrated approaches, solar plus storage. We saw a project solar plus nuclear. So, you know, we're seeing it all. That was not any new nuclear. I think it was using existing nuclear capacity to firm up solar when, again, the sun's not shining. We saw wind plus storage, and we saw wind plus storage. Again, a lot of responses across the board trying to kind of address the challenge that we put out there. Go to the next page. We did see distributed generation and local focus, and this was very, very important to us because we have been, I think, something that will be part of the RFP is some emphasis on distributed generation. Again, our load is here. There's jobs associated with DG. So we saw 17 responses received here: distributed solar plus storage, standalone storage, community solar, microgrid. So a wide range of projects that offered size-wise from 5 megawatts, again, all the way up to 900 megawatts. You go to the next page. And let me, again, part of this process was to get requests for information for FlexStep as well. And again, there is overlap between the two projects. And I'm going to turn it over to Rudy to walk us through these pages.
Thank you, Chris. First off, I want to start off by saying that FlexStep really is the new generation of what we learned through our STEP program. You know, what we accomplished through STEP is not insignificant. As Paula mentioned earlier, STEP has allowed us to be thoughtful about getting to this point where we can thoughtfully think about the future of our generation capacity. But part of that process is what we've always called our fifth fuel. STEP, we achieved more savings. We achieved it under budget, and we achieved it a year ahead of schedule. So we've got a really good framework for energy efficiency and demand response programs that really is the basis for marrying what we call our tried and true programs with new innovation. And so in order to try to be as efficient as we can be, we included an opportunity to receive information on FlexStep as part of this RFI process. We received 37 proposals. That included, I looked at the list, that included, kind of over 100 different technological suggestions that we received from companies all over the world. We got responses from the UK, we've got responses from Germany, we've got responses from all over the country, and certainly in Texas. And as you can see the breakdown, a lot of the technology are part of programs that were already a part of STEP. So we know there's going to be a solar component. We know there's going to be residential and commercial energy efficiency. We know we're going to continue to weatherize homes because it's important as part of the development of FlexStep that we continue to offer diverse programs for all of our customers. We want there to be something for every segment of our customer base in San Antonio, and that has proved itself out through the success we've had with our STEP program. So the tried and true, will be, fairly straightforward with putting programs together that already mirror the things that we have successfully done for the last decade. What we're really looking at is also the innovative component. One of the things that has made FlexStep so successful is that we've been able to change programs up from year to year. We try programs out, maybe they're not as successful as other programs, so we'll pull back on those programs, we'll introduce new programs. Right now in San Antonio, you can get solar every single way possible. You can rent your roof to us, and we will, put solar on it and buy that capacity back from you, give you a credit on your bill. You can get community solar. You can put on a solar, a solar system on your roof, or you're going to get enterprise solar as part of our normal mix if you do nothing. So every customer, there's an option solar in the solar space for every customer. What we're really thinking about is how do we, really get innovative with our program as it relates to tapping the low income market, tapping the commercial market, maybe bring in new programs that'll help schools lower, their overall operating costs so they can function, really focus in on their mission, which is to teach our children. And then you've got all kinds of new programs. Electric vehicles is a market that we're spending a lot of time thinking about. How do we build the infrastructure in San Antonio so EVs become a more attractive option? And part of that is what are customers going to do in their homes to make that possible? So, incentives for electric vehicle focused programs, inside the home battery storage. There's all kinds of new technology as it relates to the information you can get by just putting smart devices in your home. You can turn your, you can turn your crock pot on if you have the right device connected to it. You can raise and lower the temperature of your refrigerator if you have the right device connected to it. So how do we incent the idea of a smarter home more comprehensively, so that when it's really hot in the summer, we can gain access to additional energy efficiency savings, which benefits at the end of the day, how much peak generation capacity that we need. So there's a lot of really great opportunities that we see, that we've seen in the responses to our RFI that I think is going to make FlexStep just a much better product at the end of the day when we start to hone in on our new set of goals. Next slide, Melissa. So I do want to cover, we've gone through an extensive public engagement process. We are continuing to talk to our stakeholders across the community on what they think FlexStep needs to include. We will have a thoughtful conversation and get some direction from our board to finalize what FlexStep really looks like ultimately. And then we will bring back a program that our board can weigh into and feel good about, so that we can seek their approval. We then will take that approval request to City Council ultimately, so that we can get going on the next iteration of what we're calling our FlexStep strategy. So that is all for me. I will turn it back over to Chris to close this out.
Good. Thanks, Rudy. Just a couple other things I wanted to kind of mention before we kind of talk about next steps. Again, economic development is important. So we did get more than 70 responses that had some proposal for economic development in San Antonio. Ideas included education funding, job training, community funding, and projects support of local jobs. So, we do want to see positive impact economic to the local economy with a project of this size and magnitude. You go to the next page. To Paula's point, these are sort of unprecedented times, and we really wanted to understand, the impact of COVID and tariffs, and would that impact an RFP that we brought out of this magnitude and this size? And what we found, there's no real showstoppers. So I think there is some level of uncertainty on commercial dates with COVID-19. Import tariffs seem to have minimal impact on PPA pricing. So no real showstoppers, but we do have some good, what people are thinking out there. If you go to the next page. We have brought on a consultant, Black & Veatch, to help us, through this process. I mean, again, the magnitude, the types of technologies that we're looking at, it is complex, and so we want to be very thoughtful and rigorous in our approach. So Black & Veatch was selected out of a very competitive bidding process where we talked to a number of different consultants out there. They are partnered with Han Public, which is a stakeholder engagement consultant, and so they're going to be working closely with Rudy and Melissa's team. And to Paula's point, we're gonna be having lots of conversations and sharing a lot of perspectives with our community, and that stakeholder process will be very, very important. And then they're also partnered with the Electric Power Engineers, which is a technical consulting firm as well. If you go to the next page. So our path forward is we're going to continue community outreach and stakeholder engagement. We want to use the information that we're learning through this RFI process to really shape the RFP. And then most important is we want to launch this RFP hopefully this year. And with that, that concludes my remarks.
Thank you, Chris and Rudy and Paula. I think I'm unmuted now. We're doing good on time, and now we're going to have the opportunity for our guests that are on the line with us to ask some questions. Just a couple of ground rules. You will be unmuted. Adrian on the back end is going to unmute you. You will have an opportunity to ask a question and a follow-up question, and we'll go down in the order of Brendan Gibbons with the San Antonio report first. Then we'll go to Mr. Llewellyn King with the White House Chronicle. We'll then go to Diego Mendoza Moyer with the San Antonio Express News, and then we'll go to Alex Ravel with Public Utilities Fortnightly. And I think we can probably do 2 rounds of questions. And Brendan, we will start with you. So Adrian, if you can unmute Brendan.
You now? Just
Hi, good morning. Thank you for doing this.
Brendan, are you there?
Really appreciate it. I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Yeah, thanks again for doing this preview. It's really helpful. My question is on page 10, these firming capacity slides. Can we get a breakdown of how many of each of those technologies you've received responses for? How many combustion gas generators, how many recip, how many solar plus storage, et cetera?
Yeah, we'll certainly get you that information.
Brendan, do you have
There's a little
question?
bit of that on that first chart, but I think we can get you more complete.
That'd be great. And as you're making decisions on the solar costs, I'm looking at the 18 to 60 per megawatt hour. And I know you said that wasn't a surprising price range. What factors are you looking for other than just price? Would you necessarily go, automatically for the most affordable option? What might make you pay more per megawatt hour?
I think locations is going to be very. If we talk about West Texas solar places, that's the congestion risk about getting that power back to San Antonio. So I think the geography and the location project is going to be very, very important in addition to price. Again, closer to San Antonio, the better. I think also the solar technology, the different capacity factors, different efficiency.
You're breaking up a little bit on the audio. Can't hardly hear you. Can you try that again? Yes.
So in addition to kind of the location, I think, some of the technology, there's obviously different types of solar technology, efficiencies, capacity factors, production profiles. We're going to look at all that in addition to the cost.
And if I could add, there will be some element of economic development that will help vendors who want to provide things that help in education, job training. We want more people to be interested in careers in energy, and particularly in the renewable space, new technology space. So vendors that come in and have kind of a more comprehensive package probably have a way to get some more points in the evaluation process.
Thank you, Brendan. Mr. Llewellyn King, White House Chronicle, thank you for joining us from, I'm not sure if you're in Rhode Island today or DC, but we're glad you're with us. Mr. King, do you have any questions for Paula, Chris, or Rudy?
First is, what is the total budget over the period of the project? What kind of money do you think will be on the table, will be spending?
I'll jump in and Chris and Rudy can augment. We're getting some feedback here. Actually, we're really open. I think, look, at the average size of a large plant is $1 billion investment. The infrastructure needed to build big utility scale, even solar projects, though. I mean, you're talking hundreds of millions of dollars. What we have to do, though, it's not just the total budget of the project itself. We are going to look at the right financing. So again, we do some purchase power agreements that break it down into components that really are much more affordable over a long period of time. That said, we're going to compare the different options and show the community, for this price, this is what you get. For that price, this is what you get. And so whatever the tolerance is in the package, we'll figure it out. Now, the one thing I will say is everything costs money, even the energy efficiency and conservation plan. We budgeted that to be about $800 and almost $50 million. We got it for $100 million less to get over 800 megawatts of savings. That stuff goes on the bill. And in reality, over the 13-year life of that program, the monthly bills varied somewhere between very little at the very beginning, but averaged around $3.50 to $5.50 a month. That's just energy efficiency and conservation. Now we'll have to balance it. We'll have to say, if we want to continue to do energy efficiency and conservation, and we want to make it a bigger program, it's going to take more money on the bill. And so in some ways, we'll end up balancing how much money do we want to spend here with how fast we want to change the portfolio. And all of it matters. The thing that I will say that when we're talking often about this, velocity matters. How fast you push these projects and these initiatives and the timing of which you stage them can affect the overall affordability. So what we say is we're gonna go with the will of what we can get the community to want an appetite for, but we have time and we have expertise, and we're gonna blend it to make it still affordable for this community.
Thank you, Paula. And a follow-up question. When you're looking at storage, do you have drawdown criteria? Storage is good for drawdown in 12 hours or drawdown in 24 hours, and you can have very long droughts in wind and a lot of unfortunate days where you don't get the sunshine. So are there criteria for the length of the storage, how long it can be drawn down?
So if we heard the question correctly, is there criteria for the storage in terms of duration? Is that correct, Llewellyn?
Correct.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and take this one. Yes, there will be. I think what we're trying to understand with the RFI is to understand what it offers. We hear a lot from lithium ion batteries that it's 1 to 4 hour batteries together, but we want to understand what does that long duration storage looks like, and that's where a lot of the alternative technologies came in place. So with this information, I think we're going to be able to understand our requirement size and hopefully kind of narrow it down to what does that duration look like, and that's going to be a challenging question because there are periods of time where we have long stretches where renewables aren't available. But is there an integrated approach that we can take? So we're gonna be think very openly about that question. We need to get to that perspective.
I want to add something about the duration, or on top of the duration. The people say, well, why don't you just do all batteries? Because batteries today, particularly as Chris says, the lithium ion battery is the technology that is proven functional. It performs fast. But there are challenges. Batteries that utilities need to run need to be very high functioning. And so what we do is we cycle a battery. We will want to discharge it and then recharge it. We will want to discharge it fully and then recharge it. the batteries are usually designed to have so many discharges, so many stops and starts, refueling and use. And it's not designed to put the pressure on it that we would, because for us, power is agnostic. It's not a single purpose. Maybe if you had a battery tied to a home or a business, they would say, I'm gonna have it and it's as standby. For us, it would be primary. And so everybody in San Antonio wants to use power. We're going to discharge all the resources needed to supply that power. That means it cycles faster. It doesn't live as long. Batteries, they typically say can last 15 years. I think utilities probably make batteries last about 7 years if we're lucky, maybe 5. And so that's why the technology needs to get better. And so it's not just duration, it's the life. And so the last piece I will say, a gas unit, you will invest in it and you will be able to keep that gas unit maintained and available at pretty good high levels of performance for 50 years, 45 years. And that's the controversy. But batteries, when you make that investment, you have to assume over a 50-year period, you're going to replace them multiple times. And again, that's just until the technology gets to be more efficient, or until more technology, flow batteries or some other chemistry comes out that can be more effective. And that's why we are interested in what we saw. There are explorations of other types of ways to generate long-term energy. But the batteries in themselves, every technology has a benefit, fast response, and every technology has a challenge. That's why they're bundled. And that's why when we look at them, Chris's team will think about, to your point, optimizing them, but then thinking about the limitations. You might be able to optimize them for a much shorter period of time. And you got to look at that complexity.
Thank you very much, Paula.
Thank you, Llewellyn. So next we're going to go to Diego Mendoza Moyers with the San Antonio Express News. Diego, thank you for joining us and welcome to the Energy Beat. We'll be talking to you a lot more. So you are on and can ask questions now.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Cool, yeah, thanks a lot for this. It's definitely really helpful. And my first question is just, is this entire sort of FlexPOWER bundle RFP process preceding a rate increase that will be necessary as a result in CPS's shift in the energy mix?
Well, everything costs money. And so ultimately, we end up getting rate increases, not just for new technology, but just to make sure that we can do other things like put meters in and put in new technology and new innovations. We typically have been able to reduce our cost structure and also put in technology that makes us more efficient. And so it's all kind of worked out, but everything ultimately costs money. And so we will have to explain to the community the impact. Now, again, right now in the bills, customers are paying about $3.50 a month to $4 for their energy efficiency and conservation today. So the question the community has to ask, I want a bigger program. If you want a bigger program, if you want it supersized twice, then that's twice the charge. If you want it upsized 3 times, then that's 3 times the charge. And so we'll have to figure that out and we'll show all the impacts. Now, again, what we do is we smooth it in. And we figure out, so the timing, we have the ability to put it in a way that will make it more affordable over time. But again, the community, is going to be critical of deciding. In the middle of COVID, it's a pretty tough thing to do. But at the same time, the plants are getting older. And we are getting, to the point where we have to think about retiring some very old steam gas systems. And ultimately, again, we got to figure out what to do with coal, the coal unit. So again, we're gonna introduce it. It's something that we can do with our community over time to make it affordable and keep it reliable, but yet everything costs money.
Yeah, and just one of the things, so we've seen solar power make up a much larger portion of Texas's overall energy generation and become more cheap and efficient and things like that. So given what we've seen in the last 5 years or so, do you anticipate CPS will be able to grow solar capacity even beyond this RFP in the next 5 years or so?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, our initial Flexible Path said that overall about 50% of our capacity could be through solar by 2040, but ultimately the pricing looks pretty good. The real problem still though is it's intermittent, but we definitely have a commitment to put more resources into solar. And that's why we're more than doubling the request. Instead of 400 megawatts, we're looking at 900 megawatts. And I think over time, because the price affordability is so good, we'll be able to add it to our portfolio pretty robustly.
Thank you, Diego. We do have about 10 more minutes, and Alex Ravel with Fortnightly had to drop. I got a text from her boss, so we'll follow up with her after. But want to go back to Brendan then to see, Brendan, if you had another question. I think we can have time for one more question from each. Brendan?
Yeah, thanks. So we've talked about reserve capacity and why CPS Energy maintains it. And after the FlexPOWER bundle is, implemented and built, whatever it looks like, and then after you've closed some of these older units, let's say it's 2030, what does your reserve capacity look like then compared to now?
Yeah, Brendan, we have targeted a 13.75% reserve margin, and that's again if we have an issue with the plant capacity, so with the market and buy power, potentially expensive power to serve our community. We have been riding a higher year. I think we're because we have some very old. They're built in the 60s, and we need to make sure that we have additional capacity at any issues with those plants. So I think I would anticipate we would have a similar reserve margin of 13.5% in 2030, but we really need to understand the performance of some of the renewable. We're changing mix. And so the 13.75% was based on having a large power plant that goes out, and you've got to kind of have enough capacity to mitigate that. Well, with the solar farm, it's a different set of issues. It's going to be more reliable unless there's a hailstorm that comes through, and then it might be off for a while, or the intermittency issue. So I think it's going to be different, Brendan. I think it's a good question. I think it will be different. Whether it ultimately is 13.75% or not, I think that's still to be determined.
Thank you, Brendan. Llewellyn, we'll go to you next to see if you have a closing question.
I was wondering, what is your relationship with your own city? Is the city behind this project 100%?
Hey, this is Paula again. I just cut off my clock, my camera to see if it improved some of the audio. Our relationship is great. We work with our city to tell them what we're doing. Our mayor sits on our board and is very focused and helped us even launch the FlexPOWER bundle RFI. He is very supportive of us doing something that actually moves the needle. It really helps those projects happen in San Antonio, helps with potentially with education, helps economic development. So the city of San Antonio has been very, very supportive. We talk to the city manager and his team frequently. And we've also put in place some tariffs recently. We actually have solar tariffs on the residential side, had them for years. We've had windtricity. We added a green tariff just this summer. And the council was extremely supportive of that proposal, and several others that we're trying to get more robustly updated tariffs, pricing schedules. So the relationship has been good. We try our best to keep them very updated, and we also give them information for their constituents. We talk to their constituents. It's a very collaborative relationship.
And Brian, how are you sharing your information, your experience with other utilities? Is it collaborative, or are you doing this alone?
We believe absolutely in the power of partnerships. So all of us, all of the executive teams are connected to different organizations around the nation and the globe, and we share our information freely. We also post more and more our information on the website. Very soon, we're going to be posting our sustainability report in 2019. Unfortunately, we hadn't done one in a while, and we thought we need to talk to people about all of the great things that we've done in terms of wind, solar, our energy efficiency and conservation program, our commitments, recycling, water, all of that stuff. So we're posting everything. We're making sure we do a lot of outreach. We work in a lot of panels and associations. So we are open. We want to make sure that people understand the lessons that we've learned, and we want to learn the lessons from them. And we even do certain programs across the globe. I recently did one for Stanford University where I was talking with the CEO from Australia. All of the problems that are happening in the industry are kind of common. And it's very interesting to understand what they're doing and thinking about their transition on energy and sharing our ideas with them. So we think it's all about sharing that and making that information available.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. Diego, do you have a last question to ask?
Yeah. Just it relates to power storage and some of the alternative technologies. I'm just wondering if CPS explored the use of like green hydrogen and hydrogen technology in some of this power storage, or is that technology just too far off at this point?
Yeah, that's a good question, Diego. I was a little bit surprised that we didn't get more hydrogen responses or fuel cells responses. We did get one or two. I don't have the exact count, but we did get some, but not a lot. So again, I think that's an area that I think we're going to look a little bit further into, and again, see how that helps us shape our RFP. But we got some, but not a lot.
I will add that to your point, Diego, I think hydrogen needs some more collaboration and investment. We have done some outreach to the federal government, to the Department of Energy, to some advisors to try to think about that. We've also reached out to some companies across the globe, looking at some of the projects that are trying to think of the hydrogen. So we're very open to it. We will explore it, as Chris said, as part of the actual RFP. How can we shape it and try to attract it? And we'll see if there are other collaborative agencies at the federal level that might want to support a project with us.
Cool.
Well, I know we are at 3 minutes, and anything follow up, Seamus and I can assist you all with gathering any additional information that you need. So Paula, I will turn it back to you to close us out and give us some closing thoughts.
Okay, thank you. One, I want to thank you all. Excuse me. Well, I want to thank you all for your time. It was a lot. There's a lot going on. It's very complex. The way I look at everything is, in terms of a matrix of all the solutions that we have, the things that we're doing, what we're trying to integrate, how to make this evolutionary process to improve energy solutions at the same time that we're taking care of the environment and making sure that it gets healthier and healthier. That takes a lot of time and effort. We are fortunate. We have 3,100 employees that are passionate about what we do. They are making the changes themselves and thinking about the processes and how we do things differently. And so, we're excited. We will continue to share the journey with everyone and with you all. We can give you kind of a step-by-step information as we make that progress. We'd be glad to do it because we want people to understand how big this transformation is, and we want more people to get excited about it. It'll ultimately even connect to our smart city initiative. So more to come. Thank you so much for your time today.